All right. Hello, everybody. Sorry I didn't schedule this one, but with the shenanigans that happened last week with my daughter, I wanted to make sure that we just got this squared away first. But I am live with Daniel Mindlin, who went fourth place, 4-1, at the RoseHammer 2 here in Portland just, what, 3 weeks ago? Maybe 4 weeks ago? Yeah.
3 weeks ago, honestly. Time flies.
I really wanted to make that one, but I'm a new dad and it's hard to get away for a multi-day thing, but soon. Anyway, I've actually met you. We met at the first RoseHammer back in 2023. And man, you did great. You brought like a very, I think, one of the most meta lists that we talk about on the Discord right now. If there is a meta list for Grey Knights right now, because there is a lot of build variety, which is pretty neat. And we'll get into all of that, but I want to first start with you as I start with everyone else. I want to ask how long you've been playing Warhammer and why did you pick Grey Knights?
Yeah, I actually started out playing Warhammer as kind of a COVID thing. A few of my friends from where I'm from in LA, and a few of them actually live up in Portland now. We all went up to a cabin in the mountains, and we all brought armies. With all my friends had played before, I hadn't. I like speed painted up a bunch of Grey Knights. This was back in 9th edition. Two of my friends brought pre-nerf 9th edition Tau, and then brand new Codex Tyranids. So that entire 5 days we were playing didn't even come close to sniffing a win.
Yeah.
But the hobby hooked me, and the games really hooked me. And I missed the part of 9th edition with Grey Knights when the 5 Dread Knights were great and they were winning GTs, and Grey Knights were kind of the belle of the ball. But life is funny. We're circling back around to Dread Knight spam being a big thing. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, we have like 11 data sheets. So when one of them gets good, we spam it. We don't have a lot of build variety. Not like Space Marines and their 140 plus data sheets or whatever, right? So
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like with Grey Knights, the sheer lack of data sheets makes like we have to make it work. So
yeah, for sure.
if you okay, so I learned 40k on Grey Knights in 9th edition.
Right.
So I learned how to play a really weird form of Warhammer. And when 10th dropped, Grey Knights were in a rough spot. And I was kind of sick of them. I played a few practices with them and I didn't really enjoy it. I also, truth be told, didn't get how Mist worked. So I ended up switching over to Deathwatch. And
Ooh.
yeah, so I
Ooh.
ran like a really back before the nerf when Deathwatch could drop out of orbit with kill teams and then just nuke stuff. And I sucked at it again. But Deathwatch back then was about as close as Marines could get to Grey Knights. So after the first buff they got, and you could actually field some models, I picked it back up. I had a bunch of Terminators painted from 9th because at some point Paladins could get up to a -1 save, and that was
Well, that was pretty good.
that was pretty good, man. So yeah, it's good to be back into it.
That's awesome. And you did like I want to reiterate for those watching, like he went 4-1 at RoseHammer 2. And he went into some matchups that I personally feel are some of my weakest. And then also you went into some of the better players in the Pacific Northwest, and and you beat almost all of them. You only lost one game, so that's an awesome showing, dude.
It was a fun time.
Yeah. You want to get into your list?
Yeah. So, you mentioned it's part of the meta. I think Granite's shifting away from that, but my list is almost copy and pasted from Jack Harpster because it's just a great place to start, and the guy plays
Mm-hmm.
high level Warhammer, right? So, the biggest thing with that list for me is the Flamers. Um, it's when you're doing as many movement shenanigans as the Grey Knights are, there's a lot of stuff that's happening at the end of a move. So pretty much the entire list is built around one unit. And Drago gets a lot of really good press because Drago's incredible. Dread Knights right now are all the rage just because you can spam them and they're really good, efficient platforms for a 4-up invuln and shooting.
Yeah.
The real star, in my opinion, of Grey Knights is the Sigil Grandmaster Paladin Brick.
Man, we're gonna have some words. This is good stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you want to? I can jump right into the way the match was playing if you want to just talk through the
Yeah,
way it goes. Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Jump on in.
the way the list plays is if you go first, you do what Grey Knights do. You position. You can do the full auto 6-inch advance, and it's kind of unfortunate. Um, I was really lucky. Every game in which I went second, I won, and the one game in which I went first, I lost.
Yep. Okay.
Um,
That tracks.
so yeah. What's cool about the Grey Knights build that I run is that it's balanced. So Grey Knights before the Dread Knight buff, I was running it was 30 Terminators, and it was characters, and it was
Hmm.
pretty much you're just relying on the movement jank to get you out of tough situations and win fights.
Yep.
I went to LVO this year with that build,
Nice.
and it was a good time. I started 2-0, and then I fought Chaos Space Marines twice, Death Guard, and then World Leaders, and lost all of them.
Yeah.
And
Well, 3 out of the 4 of the, or 2 out of the 3 of those armies were real good at the time.
what's funny
CSM
is
Forge Fiends are just
it wasn't.
aggravating.
It's not even the Forge Fiends. It's just their ability to manipulate the fight phase with rerolls and with characters. They all have some form of either fighting first or just nuking you out of existence with full sustain lethal and full wound rerolls. But the biggest, it sucked. The biggest thing that LVO taught me was that at some point, dancing around objectives isn't going to win you games as consistently, and you
Mhm.
actually have to get on there and beat them up.
Yep.
So the beauty of the 4 Dread Knight build is that it has 3 Nemesis Dread Knights. I think one of the big drawbacks of the more Dread Knighty builds is that the Grandmaster is much slower. He's
Yes.
much slower.
Yeah.
And I'm not that like far thinking of a player where I can effectively stage all those Dread Knights. I'm trying to work on it. I'm trying to get better at that. But the ability of those 3 Dread Knights to get where they want to go, shoot, and then charge. You have Tank Shock. The weapons on it are great. Everyone knows. But going into RoseHammer, the biggest thing for me was I can actually dictate how engagements go in both the shooting and fight phase. Coming into a game against the first opponent I played, who was playing Custodes, the beauty of the Paladins, that every single game I won, they were the MVP. And the game I lost, they were also the MVP.
Okay.
But the beauty of that build is those incinerators kill everything. Like it's every if your opponent doesn't have chaff to box you out, you go where you want. So the
Yeah.
ability of a sigil unit to drop somewhere, kill the chaff with the incinerators, and then miss out or sigil out is just mwah.
Yeah. And I'm not a fantastic player, but you know, one of the questions we get a lot is like, how do I fight armies that have a lot of screening units? And it's like, you spend your first, turn or two killing screening units, not getting charged or killed by other threats, and then once you've opened up some areas for you to play, then you get to play the Grey Knight game at that point, right? Other than maybe 3-inch deep strikes and things like that, you can't really. And with those giant Dread Knight bases, you're not 3-inch deep striking one of those almost anywhere.
And even if you are, dude, it's still T8. That thing's gonna die.
Yeah, that's true.
So with that game against Custodes, it's Drago, the strengths and weaknesses of him that kind of dictated it. It was he left me just large enough gap, 9 inches away in his backfield, for me to land Drago and then bomb the 6-inch charge. It took him off some primary, and it killed most of a unit of guard. But
Mhm.
he was able to turn around with Trajan, and he was able to hit me back and kill that unit like that.
Fridge is pretty good.
Trajan, he's okay. That guy's got some juice to him.
It's okay.
He's okay. But pretty much it was, I was lucky enough to go second and get that. It was a turn 3 Drago charge off, and he had to turn around and fight me. He damn near tabled me, but by then I had a pretty sizable lead, and I was able to walk away with it. The issue with Drago is all the top armies right now will run stuff that's either a fight on death, and then you can't armor for contempt, and like Marines will kill you.
Yeah.
Custodes can pop -1 damage, and then you're stuck. So the beauty of the sigil brick is the ignore mods, which makes it a lot more effective, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion.
I guess my question about like the paladins is, I've run the triple brick list a few times. I did it with only 2 normal dread knights, and so I had some more tech pieces for scoring, like Stern, and I brought a Calidus, and I think I had room for an interceptor. I don't remember this specific list, but definitely you want the shooting from the 4 dread knights. But I was always wondering, like, why not downgrade, if you will, the paladins to terminators? You still bring the grandmaster, and obviously you said, you want the extra heavy weapons, which I get, right? A 10-man paladin squad with a GM in it has 6 incinerators, and like Drukhari want nothing to do with that. They're gonna get as far away from that thing as they possibly can. But the lethal hits on the charge is just really a way that they punch up. And then also I found the -1 to wound is so situational. I mean, because, you have lots of like lethal hits on 5s re-rolling, or with sustained, or you have, other ignores modifiers and it's just like the -1 to wound always feels so lackluster. It's like, okay, I'm not being wounded on 2s by this strength 14 laser destroyer. Now it's on 3s, and it's like, wow, it doesn't seem to really. I almost wish it was reroll saves of 1 or something. That seems like it might be more valuable with a 4-up invul, but that's neither here nor there. So save 30 points, downgrade to terminators, but you love hitting on 2s, and you love the extra flamers that much.
So the extra flamers are really, really nice, and I might want to run paladins just for those extra 4
Yeah.
flamers.
Yeah,
But
4.
for me, the biggest thing is that GM gives you that once per game dev wounds.
Mm-hmm.
Terminators hit on 3's base, and then all the 6s automatically wound. Paladins hit on 2's base. So when you're actually looking for those dev wounds, then you're going to have half the number, because you have 1 extra miss and then 1 extra that goes into lethals.
Right.
The biggest reason why I think that unit is really good is specifically Catan. On average,
I knew it. I knew you were gonna say like Catan or Avatar of Cain, or so yeah.
The Avatar of Cain is actually a little different, just because I think you want Drago there, and anything else in the army might just bounce off.
Yeah.
But on average, with dev wounds, the Paladin brick will exactly kill a Catan. If you throw in the 6 incinerators, it goes up to, I did the math at some point, it's like 60% or something.
Yeah. And you can always grenade if you really want it, to happen.
Or tank shock. Yeah, or tank shock.
Or tank, yeah.
But the ability to drop the 6 incinerators 3 inches away from your opponent, especially if they're a shooting army, and then flame someone, and then if they shoot you back, you just leave. It's a lot better than the 3 you would have otherwise with the GM with the Terminators.
Okay.
If they could res, if they had an apothecary and paladins, I think it might actually be the best unit in 40k.
Yeah, if they could res, that's the other thing that I love about the Terminator, is like that extra, you bring back 1 guy in the command phase, now your whole brick is, 3 inches closer to the enemy than they were, and with only movement 5, any like movement shenanigans you can do to get across the board faster is always, a plus. So Esquire has a great question, and Jose, I'll get back to yours. Can you ask Daniel what he thinks of the free CP strat being once per turn, is once per game? Is 1 activation of Radiant Strike potentially that powerful?
Yes. Honestly, with the way I personally play Grey Knights, I'm rarely going to be hitting that high value of a target more than once, just because when the Paladins actually get into combat, like your opponent isn't going to park the Catan 11 inches away from you so you can walk up and charge it. It's usually after the Sigil, or it's usually after you missed and then Rapid Ingress, which is the best mechanic right now, I think, in 40k.
As long as you have 2 CP. But yes, I agree.
It's rough. It's really rough, man.
It's really
I'm always CP rerolling myself out of the Ingress. But you really only use it once. If you need it, you can use the 2 CP, but there's only so many Catan one unit can fight.
Yeah, that's true. I see those like 3 Catan lists, and I'm just like, you know, like that doesn't sound fun to fight into or play, honestly. But
The fun part about Necrons is that for Grey Knights, they struggle to consistently kill Terminators.
mhm,
Even a Catan, like it'll kill a bunch, but it won't kill a whole unit.
yeah,
And Grey Knights are one of the few armies that can get stuck in with a Catan or Wraiths or maybe even the Silent King. And you won't win the fight, but you might be able to get stuck into the point and just outlast them with OC.
yeah.
The big thing is when you're playing into like Necrons, like they're slow. Even with Hypergrip, they're just slow.
Really? Oh,
Oh yeah. Oh, it's because like Wraiths can't move through walls. Catan can't move through walls. Silent King can't move through walls. So
mhm.
just trap.
Monoliths definitely can't move through walls.
Yeah. The monolith thing, I don't think I want to think about as a Grey Knight player.
Especially a 3-inch deep striking monolith.
Especially those.
Yeah.
But I don't know. My biggest takeaway from that tournament is, and you're gonna want to fight me over this. Drago is super duper optional. He's super duper optional.
You know, I agree.
Really? Okay.
So I think that if you want to take a 10-man Terminator brick, I think he's an auto. Like, I think you have to bring him. But this is, you know, we were talking a little bit before we went live. I really think that Grey Knights not only are winning tournaments right now, but like there's a lot of build variety. And you don't have to go the Manny, you know, skew list with 5 Dread Knights, 3 Land Raider Redeemers. You know, you don't have to do that, or do 6 and Canis Rex and some Librarians, right? Like, you know, you can run double brick. My last guest, Trevor, ran only a single brick. He brought Drago in that brick, right? I've seen other lists where, like you said, people are trying to go back to kind of like they're playing with more MSU Terminators, and I've seen like people, not in winning lists, but I've seen lists that are doing really well. Like they're trying out chaplains, they're trying out all of these, right? Like a 5-man Terminator blob with a chaplain in it on average, like kills a little knight, kills a little chaos knight, and that's nothing to sneeze at, you know, because they have 11 of them or whatever. So you got to be killing 2 or 3 a turn to win the game. So like, there's a lot of cool tech out there, right? I see people bringing like more interceptors for all their like little movement shenanigans and tech pieces. So unlike in 9th, where it was like you start with 30 interceptors, all combat squatted, and then you start with your 5 Dread Knights and your 2 Tech Marines, and then you have maybe 200 points to play with. You know, that was the list. Everybody ran that list. Right now, there's a ton of variety, and I think that's awesome. You have people playing with henchmen's, with Inquisitors to, like, you know, do a 12-inch deep strike and bubble. There's a shitload of stuff that's actually happening right now, and I think that's fantastic. And on a lot of those lists, and this is the longest like circle back ever, but in a lot of those lists, I don't see Drago anymore. Like, he's really good, but he's not, like, he isn't, you're gonna lose if you don't bring Drago.
So I think there's a big effect happening right now of people realizing the power of some of the data sheets. And I think that particularly the regular Dread Knights, you can play a much more proactive game plan. The days of Drago being the best character in the index and being an auto-include were when we were being forced to play a very, very reactive game. Mm-hmm. And when the positions on the board weren't going the way you wanted to, that 6-inch deep strike charge could absolutely flip the board position. What I think is happening right now is the way that the meta is shifting is a lot of hole spam. And I think that those big bases make it really, really hard to find a good 9 inches. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, when you have units like Dread Knights that can kind of go where they want and can kind of dictate the flow of the game, a piece like Drago, which is so highly reliant on your opponent giving you that 9-inch angle, is still incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's still...
Yeah, it's still...
I've had that guy charge 14 inches because I got 11 on the dice, so yeah, 3. Like a rocket ship, man. He's like, I got your number.
It's always either a 14 or Snake Eyes.
Yeah,
always.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I want to...
I love... Oh. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, please.
Nope. Nope. You're
Well,
the guest. You're the guest.
The game with Lukas, that round 2 match, I beat him 66-63,
So
was,
close.
and it
So
was
close.
supply drop, and I got relatively fortunate with how the objectives were getting pulled away. So I was able to max 15 primary in the last turn and then zeroed him out because it was just my objective. But the game against Lukas turned me off of the build that I'm running now. And I'll tell
Really?
you why. Yeah, so
Yeah.
playing with I forget, it's either 7 or 8 units. I think it's 7.
Yeah,
It's
that's actually
really,
one of the things I wanted to ask you about with your build. Like when I was playing this build, I felt like I didn't have anybody to do actions.
yes.
Yeah.
So it's fine when you go second because the way the list plays when it's doing well is it's winning low scoring games. None of the games I played were really high scoring. I don't think
I
none of the
noticed
games
that
both
too.
players. Yeah. So that game, he was running a bunch of Plague Marines, no Morty. He was running, he had a Carnivore, he had 3 Nurglings, and I knew if I was taking tactical, he could flood the board, and I could choose between playing primary or playing secondary. I wouldn't have the units or the board space to do both. So I ended up going with Bring It Down and Assassinate because he had rhinos, he had a bunch of characters.
Yeah.
It stung because I didn't have CP for anything. The reason it's that game also, I'll tell you guys how it went. So pretty much Death Guard, everything in the Grey Knight's army bounces off of it unless you're ignoring mods.
Yep.
So you just bounce off of it because
Yep.
with your infantry, your 3-up ballistic skill on the Terminators goes down to 5-up because of the -1 from their army rule or the detachment rule or whatever, and then -1 from the Nurglings. So Drago is hitting on 4s, the Terminators are hitting on 5s, and if they need to, they have a 2 CP -1 damage.
I didn't think you could stack hit or wound modifiers. Like it only goes up to a maximum of 1, right?
It's a -1 ballistic skill from the Death Guard, -1 to hit from the Nurglings.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Nurglings, thankfully, don't work against. It only works against infantry. It doesn't work against the monsters and vehicles. So the Dread Knights back to hitting on 4s. We're back to pre-nerf. So
Beautiful.
that was just fun.
With no rerolls, love it.
Yeah, with no rerolls, and your Terminators at T4, which is great. We're just
Yeah.
Blade card. But the real struggles I had with that list were getting breathing room to do anything. The reason I won was some Hero Hammer, which is the one unit that he couldn't kill, blitzed through half of his army. And because I assassinated the last play of the game, I managed to epic duel one of his characters. It was one of those ones that attaches to Plague Marines. Kill it, and that's what got me the assassinate points to win.
Did you epic challenge with the Grandmaster Dread Knight?
No, sorry. With the
damn it.
Grandmaster with Sigil. No,
I love he's a character. I just want that play to happen. Like, I really want to do that play. I don't even care it's particularly good at the moment. I just want my Grandmaster to bonk a little, like, infantry character with his massive hammer. Just think that sounds hilarious.
Sooner or later, I want him to kill Morty. Like, I need to have that in my life, that my GMDK kills Morty, because that's why with the Granites.
Yeah. At the end of 9th, actually at the first RoseHammer, I went into to World Eaters when they just had their codex, and they were like, they get points for dying on objectives, they get points for killing on objectives, all that stuff. I killed Angron twice with my Grandmaster Dread Knight, and I tabled him, and I still lost.
Yeah,
that old codex was nuts, but I loved how thematic that whole game was.
I miss when we had that Dread Knight hitting on 2s, and he had the second power of his choice. Sword Bearers were a lot of fun. Anyways, back to the point I was kind of circling around. The build I'm playing, that I played at that tournament, is designed to win low-scoring games, and it works like a charm if you go second, because you have 20 Terminators you can throw on points. You have Dread Knights that can kind of dance around, do chip damage, and then if given the opportunity, they can go in there and absolutely wreck. The 16 dice tank shock on the Dread Knights averages 5.6 mortals.
Yeah.
So combine that with all the swings, it's scary.
Yeah.
But I'm going to a tournament this weekend. I live in Florida. I'm going to a tournament down here. Art of War is going to be there. It's like a pretty big for the local scene. Winning low-scoring games in team settings is almost worthless. So you kind of have to move towards a build that can actually play secondary. and I'm slowly gravitating back towards that 9th edition build of flood the board with I only have one unit of interceptors in the current list, but it's all 6 Dread Knights. I'm keeping that unit of paladins with the sigil GM because I want to get
Yeah.
have that tattooed on my heart. But
I do like it when paladins are good. I'm not gonna lie. Like ninth was sad because all my paladins sat on the shelf and collected dust.
yeah, but I don't know. So the game against Lukas ended up turning out with me barely pulling it out just because I ignore mods. Um, there's against Custodes, I almost lost because he could -1 damage Drago. If Drago didn't end up killing a unit of guard, if he had killed a unit of custodian guard, he didn't missed out. He couldn't because of -1 damage. So
Yeah.
by 550 point unit or 535 point unit that I was running there, it's scary. It's like playing with that few units when they can just die like that. It's hard in your heart, man.
Yeah, I've had like I've went into Blood Angels once with my 10-man Drago brick, and I charged into I think it was 10 Death Company led by Gabriel Seth. I killed all the Death Guard or sorry Death Company, and Seth clapped back and killed 7 Terminators.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that wasn't worth it. But 7. It was insane.
I'm jealous of people who can launch Drago at like 4 scouts sitting on an objective and take that objective. Because every single time I want to do it with a Drago unit, I'm like, do I want to put a quarter of my list just out there? Do I not want to? And then I get indecisive, and then that's how Great Knights lose games.
Yep, and then you lose your biggest scoring model or like unit, and you just slowly lose the game after that. Yeah.
I feel like at some level I don't want to run Drago just because I love the model so much. I'm sick and tired of seeing him die every game.
Before we get too far, my closest friend Tony is watching with his 2 kids, and I want to give a shout out real quick to Ryan and Julian. Thanks for watching, guys. And Babber is down there being an old crusty lady, so I'm gonna leave her alone. They want to see my cat, but
see your dog.
Yeah, well, you're on a different camera. They see a much nicer camera. You see my cheapo.
I'll take the picture of the dog.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry. You were going. We were talking about your match into Death Guard, which, by the way, Lukas Troller is one of the best players here in the Pacific Northwest. He's on the Ruffians team. And then they have a podcast I listened to, and now the name is totally blanking. Is it Best in Faction?
I actually think I might have it. Give me one moment. But yes, they have a great podcast.
Yeah. So Nick is also on that team. He and Lukas have won GTs before. They're much better at this game than I am, and you should go listen to their podcast, Best in Faction. You can find it on YouTube and Spotify and all that stuff. They're much better at this game than I am.
They're also all 3 of them. I think Tyler is a Team USA coach and a player, and then Nick and Lukas are both Team USA players. Lukas started for Team USA at the most recent Worlds. Mm-hmm. They're also just fantastic guys. I learn more like standing next to them at like the lunch line at a tournament, just chatting about Warhammer than I do like playing games.
Yeah, no, I do too. I'm the same way. Like I think Nick is actually in chat, and it's called Take All Comers. So my mistake. Go. They're with Stat Check now, which if you are a data nerd like I am, stat-check.com. Is where I go for all of the data on every pairings. There are meta selections. You can get all the data that you want. Real data. I don't know what Games Workshop uses. I heard they also use RTTs and other stuff. So
well, it's also data over in England. It's on a different time zone. They're in the metric scale. It just doesn't work right. But
They
yeah,
still use inches for for measurement though.
yeah. I mean, they forced us to name our unit of measurement after their king's foot, and then they changed and just left
Hmm.
us with it. Now the whole world gets to roast us for using that. Anyways, the game with Lukas pretty much went like this. He's slow, but if I let him get close to me, he just kills me.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, they're so
what I
those boys slap. Those stinky boys slap.
well, it's also Dread Knights become T7. So their plasma guns and their melted guns are strength 8 and 9, winning me on threes, and it's just
Mm.
like but that game really wanted to make me start playing Grey Knights in a more proactive way because there's certain matchups. Death Guard are like this. I would say Blood Angels are like this. Ironically, I would think before I played them twice this tournament, Tower like this, but Tower kind of the opposite. There's certain matchups where if you don't like actually impose the game state that you want to,
Hmm.
even with Grey Knights, even with all the shenanigans you have, your opponent can kind of just either number one bust through it, which Death Guard can do because Dread Knights are good, but it's difficult to line up enough shots to pop a transport and get a charge off into it.
Yeah.
So all those Plague Marines and Rhinos, they can essentially operate with impunity, or they can use their transports effectively, zone out the board, use the Nurglings effectively, zone out the board. And even though you're fast, you just don't have enough units. Like you don't have a place to put all of your units if you're not really, really proactive about getting them there quickly.
Sure.
So going second and the positive supply drop are the reasons I think I played okay, not great, but I think I played okay. But Grey Knights are the kind of faction with that build where the circumstances, the moon and the stars and Saturn and Jupiter really need to align for everything to go perfectly, and it's really really easy for it to go off the rails. So yeah,
Yeah. No, I that's interesting because like you say you can't get touched by them. We all know stinky boys are slow, but you're also saying you have to aggressively get into position and like own the board state. So, I guess this goes back to, I had Brad Chester on here in my early days of this show, and he was like, measure, man, measure. He's like, I spend more time measuring than rolling dice. He was like, measure and ask questions. How far can you get? Do we agree that if I'm right here, you can't charge me, right? Like stuff like that. Um,
the thing is, as slow as Death Guard are, Terminators are exactly as fast. Plague Marines and Paladins both move 5 inches. So the only edge Grey Knights would have is that they can just pre-place the turn before they want to be moving the Terminators where they want to go. The problem with a lot of primary is there's only so long that you can stand on a point and do your Grey Knight tricks before you really, really start losing your own primary. So most of the games that I won with at very low scoring because I could do all the Grey Knight tricks to deny my opponent primary
right.
instead of trying to aggressively score myself.
Yep.
It also lends itself to low model count. Grey Knights don't have enough pieces to just like there's no 65 unit of scouts we can infiltrate onto an objective.
Yeah.
Just hold it there until the rest of the army arrives. Every single unit, if you trade it, you will lose into pretty much every army. So it's tough and it's tight, and you have to delay and frustrate your opponent until they pretty much just run out of time, which it's really fun and it's a great way to win a game. But
You
scary,
mean
man.
time in the rounds, right? Not time like on the clock.
No. One of the beautiful things about playing with this few units and that doesn't really need a movement phase is the games start and end like that.
Hmm. It's like playing Crusher in ninth.
I would say that the sensation is really similar to shotgunning like Monster energy drinks.
Okay.
It's really intense and it's just like hits you all in the face.
Oh man. I'm almost 40, so I can't like when I think back on those days, that's it's not something I've done in a while.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, you can simulate that experience by playing a 7-unit Grey Knight army coming soon
Yeah.
to a tabletop near you.
That's true, right? So when you we've kind of jumped around, which is totally fine. Like I'm not mad. So when you say you're like before we started the show, you were saying you were contemplating playing more of those like pre-data slate style builds. So like if you don't mind giving away your secrets, like what are you looking at now for a build?
So I think pre-Data Slate, there was a really heavy focus on librarians because Grey Knights were so inconsistent with the way that they dealt damage.
Hmm.
So you would need librarians. Number one, they're great secondary tools because you can launch the Vortex of Doom, and then still push a button or whatever. But I think people really were afraid of not being able to kill their opponent quickly enough. And I think the meta has shifted in a way that GW has been trying to make the game less lethal. And I think the game is still pretty goddamn lethal, but they're getting better at it. So I think the earlier builds of a lot of board control oriented Terminators might be more viable now than it was even then, just because it's harder to kill Terminators now. You can't have 5 chosen pop out of a round with a Chaos Lord and kill 350 points of your army just like that. I also think the ability to add 1 or 2 Dread Knights is a really, really good threat projection tool, which will make things like Redemptors or Demon Primarchs a little more wary of your army. And it'd be interesting to try to go back to the earlier plays of here are 11 Terminators, 10 plus a character. I'm going to
Right.
stream them out across the entire board, maximum possible coherency. And then I have 2 more staging up behind it. And let's see if people can break down the mist barrier and if they can break into your actual castle.
So you're thinking
So
like a 3x10 brick.
that's what I ran, and it works.
That's
It works
oh,
really,
that's
really
cool.
well.
Yeah, yeah. That was one of the lists that was pretty popular before. Like again, when Dread Knights were pretty bad,
So
we ignored that data sheet entirely. That the triple brick was pretty common.
So the first time, if I recall correctly, that Dread Knights were like considered competitively viable in 10th was right after Art of War went to, I forget which team's tournament, but some major team's tournament, and Jack Harpster ran that triple Dread Knight or triple Terminator build with Drago and
Right.
a couple librarians. I forget exactly what it was, but that's what showed it had legs. And all the Grey Knights people that I was interacting with, they didn't know what else to run, just because everything else will either bounce off something or just die.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really fun way to play just because showing up at the table with 30 Terminators and your opponent looking at it and figuring out, okay, this is what I have to kill, it's just a great feeling. It's a
Yeah.
great sensation.
It's
Um,
92 up, 4 up wound, or yeah, 90 wounds at 2 up, 4 up. That's before I use Armor of Contempt, or sorry, True Silver Armor.
True Silver, yeah, you can't
Right.
back this
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Can't vect it,
You
baby.
can't back it. So I think it also has. I'm trying to get more into teams, and I think that that particular build has a lot of legs in teams, particularly because a lot of people are now running Thousand Suns. It's a great teams matchup. If you run Drago with his 4 against mortals and his ability to just nuke Magnus out of the game, with 2 bricks of Terminators, both with librarians, even
I was just gonna say, yeah.
yeah, you can actually stand out in the open with all of them, and the Thousand Suns, they might kill you because they do a lot of stuff, but
With the
it's gonna
with the flamers, yeah. Like
yeah, exactly.
I this is a so my favorite list that I'm running right now is inspired by Ed Watts. He came in second at the Manchester GT, I think. He went 6-1, something wild. And obviously he's a fantastic player. He has no Drago. He has 3x5 librarians, or he has 3 librarians and each in a 5-man Terminator squad. And I started playing with that because first of all, I just like the Libby bomb. When it pops off, it feels really good. It doesn't always pop off, of course. That's not reliable in any way, but it's just fun. And then also because Grey Knights are doing well, more people are playing Grey Knights. And Thousand Suns have always kind of been at the upper end of the meta since 10th hit. So having that 4 up against Psychic, if you go into the mirror, you trounce the other Grey Knight player if they don't have any librarians. And if they do, just nobody does anything the whole game. But like you win. Almost guaranteed win if you have librarians and the other Grey Knight player doesn't, because you have a 4 up feel no pain against every attack they have that isn't a Stormbolter or a Flamer.
So one of the things you mentioned there is something that I'm trying to kind of do a emotional reset with Grey Knights because I've had a good tournament. I want to try something new.
Yeah.
One of the things that I keep trying to think about is, do I want to run a more MSU style? And the conclusion like that I keep reaching with my practice games is Grey Knights have terrible data sheets. They suck. Like AdMech might have better data sheets than us. Actually, like
Terrible data sheets. I
yeah,
think you. Okay. I
yeah.
think
Sorry,
you kind of.
sorry if I cut it.
No, it's all good.
Very bad data sheets. And what makes Grey Knights, in my opinion, a very, very good army is just the rules. So Sigil is incredible. Mists is incredible. True Silver Armor is great, right? Every time you're using it on a 300-point unit, when you could be using it on a 600-point unit,
Right.
you're not really
Yeah.
maximizing the efficiency of it.
And it's not like we have CP regen, so.
Yeah, it's not like, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I keep finding myself falling flat, and it's like, you don't need a lot of units to play the Grey Knight game just because every individual unit does so much. That's why Grey Knights can get by from having 7 units. I don't think even Custodes will have more, and they'll probably bring a Custodes. Grey Knights don't need that. What I dislike right now about the way the meta is going with Grey Knights is they are being turned into kind of like a alternative build to Imperial Knights, which is your Dread Knights or your Armigers. There's a popular build that just happened. Colin Watts just won a tournament in Valdosta, Georgia. Colin's a really good player, where he runs Canis Rex with 6 Dread Knights.
Yeah,
and
I think
3 librarians.
I think that list was on War Games Live last weekend. I don't know if he was playing it, but it was like it was definitely like it was 3 Libbies. No, it was on War Games Live. It was over in Austria. That's right. So it was definitely not in Georgia. Not Georgia, the country or the state. It was in Austria. And it was 6 Dread Knights, Canis Rex, 3 Librarians, and a Strike Squad. And maybe a Custodes. It was very few models.
Grey Knights have way, way, way too like interesting and good rules for me to like want them to turn into a stat check. Which when you're running Canis Rex and 6 Dread Knights, there's definitely a lot of complexity of the army. It's not like you're playing Stormland Space Wolves with 18 Thunder Wolves and just 2 CP.
Only 18. I thought you could fit like 27, but whatever. It doesn't matter. I think this is not a Space Wolves podcast.
But I think with Grey Knights, what I want to see more of is a return to kind of the early days of 10th when Grey Knights players were really desperate for an edge and they were doing a ton of innovation. And I want to see that again. I want to see where people can take these lists. Yeah.
I mean, the Dread Knight problem, if we can call it that, a lot of it stems from, we have poor shooting in this edition. When 10th came out, everybody's running incinerators right now because Overwatch is a lot stronger in 10th than it was in 9th. The profile for our incinerators is actually very good for it's better than most flamer profiles, right? Strength 6, I mean, come on. Then -1, that's pretty gnarly, right? A heavy flamer is what, strength 5, 0 AP, right? Like a normal heavy flamer, yeah. All right, anyway.
I don't even need to know any profile, but that also you can't Armor of Contempt it if there's 6 of them with a GM who ignores mods.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's true. Yeah, it does ignore mod. The GM, man, that glow up, that when I read that in the data slate, that made the Grandmaster, who had wanted to run for a long time, since 8th, the Grandmaster on foot was bad. In 9th, he was bad. And in 10th, he was bad at the beginning because of the way that certain tournaments ruled the ignores mods thing. But in other tournaments, he was really good because he ignored all modifiers. And then Games Workshop said, no, he ignores all modifiers. And then I'm just like, okay, this guy is incredible, right? We gotta find the use for him, because -1 to wound is everywhere. AOC is everywhere. And you're just like, no, I don't care. -2 movement from fucking Night Spinners. I don't care. At least not on that brick.
What? Yeah, well, yeah. So there are also -2 charge. The beauty of that particular sigil brick is if you're a combat army, most combat armies, Custodes, Blood Angels, name it, they rely on either fight on death won't really matter here, but they'll rely on -1 damage from like Lamarties, -1 damage from a strat, Orks rely on -1 to wound. Drago suffers there. The sigil GM in every single matchup against a combat army ignores that, right?
Yep.
The sigil itself means that shooting armies, they just Like it's like an auto win. It feels like an auto win because you can 3-inch deep strike in front of them, line up in front of them, shoot them, probably take them off an objective or two, and then rinse and repeat until they activate sigil.
Yeah, it's like just keep reminding them, like, hey man, if you shoot them. Also, funny fact, which hasn't come up in any of my games, but I read this. Sigil, if they shoot pistols into you in combat, you can actually just pick them up.
Yeah,
it's like Sigil does not have the stipulation that it cannot be used within engagement range. Miss can't be used within engagement range, but Sigil can. They just have to shoot you.
Just have to shoot you. It's nice.
Yeah.
The one annoying thing is there's one inconsistency in the rules. Not inconsistency, but it's like a false parallel. Thousand Suns, they have a strat which makes your weapons hazardous, and they have a 4 feeling the pain against psychic attacks. When any opponent of the opponent's enemy's armies selects targets for anything. So it can be an ability, it can be a strat, anything. So Grey Knights, the sigil unit needs to actually be targeted by a ranged attack. Right. So their Libby can shoot you. If you shoot back, then hazardous. And taking the 11 hazardous tests when you run into Thousand Suns is horrifying. Yeah. No, it's the psychic keyword does nothing in this game right now except debuff us for sure. Yeah, it does like I don't know what's gonna happen when the dex hits, obviously. Like I'm not clairvoyant and I don't work for Games Workshop, and you wouldn't want to play my rules anyway. But yeah, I like the psychic keyword better do something. I saw the Custodes info today that was on Warcom where they previewed like one of the new detachments. It's very thematic, like Sisters of Silence backing up their Adeptus Custodes brothers, but that gives them a 4-up feeling of pain against psychic attacks. And it's just like, wow, okay, don't want to fight that with my Grey Knights right now, ever. Like ever. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
Looking at the new codexes is actually like what they did with the Orks and the Custodes. It gives me a lot of like optimism for what they'll do with Grey Knights, largely because it doesn't seem like GW really cares about Grey Knights. I don't remember. I think it was definitely before I was playing the last time we got a new model. And we're like, we're very neglected children here. I'm hoping they actually bring us back to our like Demon Hunters Inquisition roots, because if Grey Knights were more of an army that's designed to be souped in with stuff, like we could actually get more flavor. What sucks about Grey Knights is it's tough for us to invade because we only have that 11 data sheets you mentioned. I'm really hoping that they actually like give us the opportunity to try different play styles that we haven't had the opportunity to do yet.
I really, man, I got a whole lot of things flying through my head right now. I'm optimistic. I guess it's because my two armies that I play the most are both kind of like Forgotten Sons. Like I play Grey Knights and I play Deathwatch primarily. If you look at Deathwatch right now, they are hands down the worst army in the game. They're even worse than AdMech, and that's saying a lot. Because they're still Space Marines, so you would think.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I think Deathwatch has legs. Deathwatch has a lot of legs.
On Stat Check, they have the lowest. Anyway, they're not doing well. 43%. So I don't know where AdMech is on here, and I don't want to spend too much time looking. But it's down there. It's very low. It might be lower than AdMech. It might be higher, slightly higher. I don't know, but they're one of the worst now. The only rumor that I've heard, and again, this rumor, huge fucking banner across this right now. This is a rumor. There's a rumor that Drago could get a new model, and it'll be on a 50mm base. And then we don't know what his rules might be. I think Drago's fine cast model is pretty bad, so I wouldn't be upset if he got a new model, but I'd like to see other stuff, you know, like I'd like to see a prognosticator like character or an interceptor character or something, you know, because like we have this Brotherhood champion which is actually a really cool data sheet. I'd like to put him into things. He can only go with strike squads or purgation squads, and if you stick him in with a strike squad, they lose the scout move. And it's like,
Yeah.
and then
It's like,
yeah, and it's like I'm not gonna put him in a 10-man because now it's like this 300 point. Like I'll take purifiers because they just have a better data sheet, and Crow at that point I lose fight first, but you know, like the game is so killy, as you said, like 3 damage is everywhere, 2 damage is everywhere, and yes, we have a 2-up save on our strike marines, but we don't have an invul. So
yeah,
like
no,
plasma wipes us out because of black, and it's just like there's no other synergies there, right? Where like these data sheets or these codexes or indexes with a wide variety of models. You got Orks, you got Eldara, you got Space Marines. Like they can dip and dive and grab from like all these crazy potential like synergies, which I think is really cool for them. And we don't have that, right? Like most of our characters are Terminators, so they only go in Terminator squads.
Well, so what's kind of annoying, there's 3 things that I really want to see change. Number 1, a lot of factions can join multiple characters to a single unit. I'd love to be able to, for example, our lieutenant, the brother captain, if he can join with Drago, game changer. Hugely different army right off the bat, because then you can give Drago sigil, you know?
Well, there's that too, yeah, but also like, you know, sustained hits. I also wish if he gave reroll wound rolls of 1 to his whole unit instead of just himself, that right there would be, he'd be like, okay, like, and sustained hits 1, okay, I'm listening, right?
So the buff that I was actually expecting to see before they buffed the Dread Knights was in 9th, Hammerhand was full wound rerolls in melee. And I was hoping that the Brotherhood Terminators would get like the same rule that Assault Intercessors have, so reroll wounds of 1 or full rerolls against something on an objective.
Yeah.
That makes way more sense than the lethals, and it isn't that crazy of an effect on strength or AP2 damage to weapons. But I really want to see the ability to put like Inquisition models with Grey Knight squads without them just breaking our rules for no reason.
Yeah. I was gonna say you can actually join them with Terminators because they are Imperium battle line, but it does break. Yeah, like we lose Deep Strike. I think if
you lose Deep Strike, so
which is just it depends.
But the thing I really want to see, the thing I really want to see is something like Death Watch, where I'd love to see mix and match units like Kill Teams with Grey Knight stuff, because the entire chapter in the lore, the entire chapter has access to either Power Armor or Terminator Armor. So in the books, which I'm a Grey Knight nut, I love reading those books.
Yeah. Go on, sir. Go on. This is a safe place.
Thank you. It's tough talking about Grey Knights to all my like Xenos playing friends, because all I want to talk about is the weird slave girls hanging off of Vect's Ravager.
Okay.
Anyways, sorry.
Everybody has their thing, I guess.
Yeah, but one of the things that I wanted to like do with Grey Knights was actually play a game, like one game where I got to dictate the flow of it. So that's why I'm moving towards a build it's all 6 Dread Knights. It still has a sigil break, but then you have room for a squad of interceptors, so you can kind of feel more free to move around your objectives.
Yeah.
And then I'll have to investigate a signal with the 200-point Grandmaster and Dread Knight.
Right. That's a tech piece I want to play with more. I've only played one game now with interceptors, and I don't think I use them very optimally at all. They feel like a really niche kind of tech piece. And not niche in a bad way, just niche in the way that you have to play them. Like, you have to be fully aware of everything they can do, right? You can't just kind of like ham-fisted, you know, get some value out of them. You have to, like, pre-plan everything, you know?
So the thing about interceptors, the reason I want to add them to the list is, in most of my games, people are going to just cover the puck so that I can't 3-inch deep strike onto it. The beauty of the interceptors is they can deep strike 3 inches away and then move 6.
Shoot and then moves,
Yeah, so they can just do objectives even though my opponent's trying to cover it.
No, it's a fantastic piece of tech for sure. Yeah. That's why I brought some, is I wanted to try that out. And then I went into a Yanari list that had so much shaft that I wasn't 3-inch deep striking anywhere.
What's funny is I have trouble actually finding the models right now because I ran 30 and ninth, but in the year and a half since then, um, almost all of the sticks have broken off the backpacks because
No.
yeah, I moved across the country, so it's just like I have a lot of strikes
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. You got a lot of you got a lot of strikes now. Yeah, there's some more tech in our index, but um,
So
I mean, like,
I'm curious, in your experience with
mm,
Grey Knights, what have been the consistent MVPs in your games?
I mean, lately it's been the Libbies and the Dread Knights, but my list is built around the Libbies and the Dread Knights, right? And I have, um, the idea is to bludgeon the enemy as much as possible, do a threat overload where they're like, okay, there are, you know, 3 T8, 13 wound, like Dread Knights that can advance and shoot and charge, um, that all have charges now. I just lost a bunch of models to the fucking weird brain burst power that one model has. Oh, and by the way, I'm about to have 17 OC shoved onto like the middle objective. What am I going to kill? Right? That's kind of my playstyle right now. But like the big plays for me since 10th, like the big plays, like you said, I've always run my Grandmaster with Paladins. They usually do great, or it's Drago with his 10-man Terminators that do great. So usually it's one of those two bricks. I haven't run into a lot of the like I still haven't played Hyper Crypt Necrons. I haven't played into like the 100 cultist CSM list with all their 5-up lethal hit sustain stuff.
Thankfully, I think
Yeah.
that's dead. I don't think that build's still alive.
Really? I
Yeah,
think.
so they nerfed the hell out of that army. That army, dude, CSM
Oh,
suck. They
I
really
thought.
suck.
I thought 40k dirtbags. Derek took like one in RTT with that list like a week ago.
Well, that's the
But
example that proves the rule because Derek's just amazing. You know.
he's a pretty good player. He was sort of best Grey Knight last season. Yeah. But
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like playing Grey Knights right now, there's a ton of armies where you feel great playing into them and you can like use Mist effectively, you can Rapid Ingress effectively, you can use Sigil effectively.
mhm.
Sometimes you just hit a wall though. And that's what I'm kind of struggling with is like I'll go 4-1 on RTT. I'll beat Lukas. I'll do really well. I'll be playing really well. The next weekend, I went to a local RTT here in Florida, 0-3. Just like, and nothing changed. Everything was going fine. The games that I was winning by 5 or 10, they flipped. And I was just losing them by 5 or 10 because I would either, the mission would be slightly not in my favor or I just don't
Scrambler
roll.
Fields.
Oh my God, don't even get me started. But yeah, it's like, I want to play lists that are like, maybe they're weaker, but I can have more control over my own destiny, you know?
No, I mean, I think like that's what I was saying earlier, right? We're in this beautiful point in the meta where like if you look at the top 3 Grey Knight lists in any of these tournaments, and maybe they're all not in the top 20 or top 50 even, but if you look at the top 3 Grey Knight lists, they're all different. Like nobody's bringing a cookie cutter list, and I think that's awesome. Everybody has some points left over for some tech, like, oh, I really love, I personally love to run my like double libbies as missiles and action monkeys. So like I always start my list with those like 2 libbies, right? And that's fantastic. In ninth, I don't think our army was bad. I think the codex was a little uninspired. And we got a cookie cutter. Like we figured out what the meta was, especially because we got our codex. Well, we got it kind of in the middle, not late, but
We had our center.
and it was, this is what everybody plays. And you knew like if I'm at a tournament, I'm going into a Grey Knight player, unless they're one of those folks that just don't care at all and they bring whatever fluffy stuff that they want. You knew, okay, it'll be 30 interceptors 5 Dread Knights, 2 Tech Marines, and then 100 points of whatever other thing that they want to bring.
So I'm not brave enough to run this list, but you might be, or one of your viewers might be. There was a list, I think 3 months ago, that was doing well in Europe that was running the full Crow Brick out of a Storm Raven. What they would do is...
No, please. Please,
well,
go ahead.
You get out of the Storm Raven, you shoot, and then you can miss back into it.
Mm-hmm.
So something like that would be like seeing that win an event, another event. I think the one already would be really, really cool.
So that was run by Chase, who's a player on the East Coast. No, actually, it might have been in the UK. Oh man, now I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure it was in Europe.
Yeah. So Matthew Green is a member of the Grey Knight Discord, which, by the way, if you're not on there, join. It's really great group of guys. Matthew Green, headstrong on there. He's been on my show before. Chase is like one of his teammates and one of his friends. Apparently, that list was hyper aggressive. Like, if he got first turn, that Storm Raven is like in your deployment zone turn 1, right? Like he did not mess about at all. I don't know. I've been meaning to kind of find him and talk to him and be like, how do you even play this? Because I'm looking at the list and it's like, okay, you must go in and just try to do as much damage as possible in the first 2 turns. And if you don't, you lose. And if you do, you win. But like, yeah. You know, but then like target priority is really important, right? Because like purifiers are anti-infantry 2+, but they kill on average like 2 custodian guard in shooting. Yeah. Like, you know, so there's like, you kind of have to know exactly how the Crow Brick plays and what it's good into and what it isn't. And yeah, it starts to get really gnarly really fast when you look at that. It's like, I legit look at that list and I'm like, I don't know how you play that.
I
just
starting out 10th playing Death Watch, when you just deep strike that, you teleport carrying the kill team in there and it shoots. Felt really good when I was learning 10th because I would land and I felt like I'd table my opponent. Really quickly, what started happening was the 3-up save with no invuln started kicking me back really, really hard. And I ended up pretty much sprinting back to Granite because I saw that 2-up save, 4-up invuln. Yeah. What scares me about running more power armor is at the end of the day, it's just T4 and 2 wounds with no invuln, and it's like,
yeah,
it's sweaty to think about it.
It's a 2-up save, which is nice. Like, don't get me wrong, and I'm sure you could win games if you brought like, if you just went ham. I don't think you can actually afford this, but if you brought like 6 10-mans of strike squads, you know, like bring 3 bro champs in there for fight first, like. That's a stat check for units, for melee armies. They don't want to charge you because now you'll fight first, and it is 30 attacks, or plus the Brochamp, which has a pretty good chance of sniping out a character that's not in or up to Terminator armor. He's pretty good because he's re-rolling all hits, all wounds, and you know. I think he does an average of like 6 wounds, so he won't kill Drago. But anyway, so there's like funny lists like that, but I don't think that's a good list because if you run into triple, you know, Chaos Knight or CSM Forge Fiends, you know, you get 3 of them with blasts, like you're losing like 8 of your strike squads per Forge Fiend. It's like holy shit.
I think 1 Redemptor might table that army in 5 turns. Just 1.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Because of the -1 damage, yeah.
Well, and just because...
Oh, the blast from the... Yeah. It's -3 when it's overcharged, right? -3 AP? -4. Cool. Well, at least we get a save. And if we're in cover, you know, you'll save a third of your guys.
And then maybe I won't time. Yeah, God. But, I don't know. I feel like Grey Knights... I like that people are flocking to them because they are an army which doesn't really have reroll access, and it really does rely on perfect positioning. We're lucky that we have good rules that let us position pretty much however we want, but it's a big breath of fresh air from seeing like Gladius Black Templars, where they're just, okay, I'm gonna reroll against that and go kill it. It's cool seeing high level players and high level teams implement our boys.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, with a fantastic weekend, what was it, last weekend or the weekend before? Like 63% win rate for that weekend.
Yeah.
I think we were at 49 last weekend, so
So I'm curious, have you done any teams events yourself?
I have not. I want to, but I just had a kid.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's mostly GarageHammer for me for the foreseeable future. But teams like, I love the idea of like people like folks who love to bring skew lists, like teams like that's their jam, right? On my team we have a Imperial Guard player who just likes to run as much indirect right now as possible, which is partially because Barry's an asshole. But also it's just really good with Guard, and it's funny. He's like, yeah, this is a bullshit list, and if you're tough enough, I lose, and if you're not, I win. End of story. Yeah.
What I like about, so I'm going to my first teams event this weekend with Grey Knights, and what running through like just the thought processes with my team and the simulations of how we'd want to play and who'd want to play who, I keep coming back to the response of, yeah, I can probably play them, I'll figure it out. And it's what's cool about Grey Knights is like every single game becomes kind of a different puzzle. So if you're playing like Iron Storm, every single game is kind of the same. You have your castle, it moves up the board, and then it shoots stuff, and you might win, you might not win, depending on how that goes.
Dark Angels, Azrael, double Storm Raven, that, and then 2 Redemptors or whatever, or triple Storm Raven. I don't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Whatever random BS.
Yeah.
It is. But what's cool about Grey Knights is like every single game becomes this like reality to experience of like, what is this opponent's particular different kink about movement? What is their particular biggest threat? How do I play around it? So every game I play is different from every other game I play, and it's fun. It's cool. I'm happy that 40K is like at a place right now where like the most reactive faction in its opponent's turn is usually the most fun, and it's super cool going from a 9th where the Grey Knight's best phase was our opponent's psychic phase because we could just deny them endlessly. It's cool going into our best phase is your movement phase.
I do not miss the psychic phase.
If you did, you'd be 1,000 Sun.
Yeah, I don't. Well, see, but they get a really cool army rule that's psychic-ish, feels psychic, but they don't have to have a whole phase in there. Like, I've had like Tau players on their phone just bored while I'm doing my psychic phase. I'm like, okay, they take 3 mortal wounds. He's like, cool. Like I'm on Facebook or something. Well, I don't care, because they can't interact with it. And then you also had the thing of like, okay, I need a warp charge 7 Gate of Infinity to go off. Oh, it didn't happen. I guess I lose this game. I'm glad, like, I know dice tell stories, but like there were huge plays that you'd miss in 9th with Grey Knights if like your one roll didn't go well. I'm not talking about now with like Libby's killing themselves or whatever. I mean, like, okay, that like let's just re-rack.
Yeah. I don't know. Thinking back to 9th, like nowadays, I don't even always use all 3 of the units that I can for teleport strike.
I don't either. Yeah.
9th. Well, it's but thinking back to 9th, where like I would give like my heart and soul for that 1 dice to go, so I can teleport 1 unit.
Yeah.
And now GW just give us take 3.
Yeah, you can have 3. Yeah. No, it's true, especially when you have fewer units like yours. You're like, I'm stuck in with 4 of them. That already means I only have 3 I could even teleport anyway, but 2 of them are like normal Dread Knights that I have within the advance and charge, range for really good charge next turn. So I guess I'll just pick up this strike squad and go sticky this other objective. Bam, like, MSU, you have to think that through a lot more.
Okay, so this conversation is making me very nostalgic. The next kind of casual chance I have to play 40K, I'm going to see how closely I can recreate that 9th edition 30 interceptor 4 dread knight build in 10th.
Okay.
And see how it does.
I mean, you can still run it. I mean,
yeah, but like
I think it even fits.
Yeah, because 30 interceptors is going to be.
Well, it'll be 270 per squad of 10.
Yeah. So you can fit that. You can definitely fit that.
I'm actually curious. I have Battle Scribe up, but I'm not gonna make you guys wait. So
every single shooting phase with those 30 interceptors are okay. Here's 30 storm bolters, and then I'm gonna move back 6 inches and do no damage.
Oh, I mean, you'll bring 2 incinerators with that many of them, right?
No, that's true. Maybe just to be contrarian, I'll run silencers.
So, 5 Dread Knights, 30 interceptors is 1,765 points.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you add in 2 Tech Marines, you're at 1885. So you can.
Drago, just Drago.
I don't even think Drago will fit.
Oh no, he's at
1885. Yeah. So you could do like, some. We need something to hold your backfield. So you could take some Inquisitorial henchmen.
Yeah.
And give them a mystic. And then you could give one of the Dread Knights sigil. And the other Dread Knight you could give Inescapable Wrath. That's 1990. There you go. We did it.
You would need to give the henchman an Inquisitor, otherwise the mystic doesn't work.
Oh, the mystic only works with. Oh no.
Yeah, all the henchman rules, literally every single rule is while an Inquisitor.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
But if you want to get some indirect, you can get Draxus in there, and she can.
Yeah. So you drop Inescapable Wrath, you drop 1 Tech Marine, and you throw Draxus in there, and you're at. Can't do this fast enough. I want to be faster. Well, I'll just stick and it. Yeah, you're at 1990 again.
Dude, that list works. You might not like it, but it works.
I think the interceptors die by turn 2, and then you're just playing with half of your army, but that's just me.
You're just making Grey Knights into Blood Angels, you know?
Without the +2 strength or +1 attack.
Yeah, but maybe. But hold on. Can you fit a couple of rhinos in there?
No. I mean, not without dropping a 10-man squad of interceptors or a Dread Knight or something.
Definitely drop one of the Grandmasters.
Okay.
He's
I can't believe we're doing this. This is
this is gonna work. He's getting left behind because he's way too slow.
Yeah, that's true.
So we need 2 rhinos. We can rapid ingress one of the squads of interceptors.
Yeah. Okay. So we have 60 points. So we can bring back a Tech Marine.
There we go.
And now we're at 2,000 exactly.
I'll tell you this: that list might really suck, but it will max tactical every single day.
This would, oh man. I guess you have those 100 killer missiles that'll miss now. That's fun.
Yeah. I honestly, I still have my 9th edition codex. I'm going to bring that 9th edition codex and start reading from it at the table. And
I will send you this list in Discord. So there you go. So stupid.
Okay.
Oh man. Well, that was fun. That was fun.
Yeah, it was a fun trip. Okay.
We have 3 viewers left now.
Hey guys.
Yeah, I think we're up to like 11 or something. But
cool.
All right, I'm gonna call this the Mindlin build.
Cool. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
When I run this, I'll send you the pictures. It's gonna be fun.
I'm gonna laugh so hard if like this works and this becomes the new meta. In chat, I've thrown in the link for everybody, and I'll update the description. I'm gonna call it the Mindlin list or Mindlin build.
Mindlin build, man. Oh yeah.
All right. Anyway, sorry. that happened.
Sorry, I made us go through that. But
No. I'm not actually mad. It's just when I've done this like do a build on stream thing, but like before, usually there's so much dead air of people not really saying much that's useful. But that was hilarious. So, all right,
okay, we are
4
right.
Dread Knights,
4 minutes.
30 Interceptors, 2 Rhinos, Draxus and some henchmen to hold your backfield, 2 Tech Marines, 2,000 points.
Kind of works, man. Okay, it's rapidly approaching midnight, which is my bedtime. However,
Okay.
I do want to quickly talk you through the rest of that tournament because it was a good time.
Yeah.
Round 3, I played Tarzan. Oh, I don't know if you're aware of Tarzan. He's one of them. Like,
I'm not actually.
Okay, so Tarzan, really good guy. I think he's local. He's definitely local to Portland. He's probably he's really big, really ripped. I think he's like 260 pounds. Tarzan is not his real name. That's his Warhammer stake.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
you really guess.
Well, his name in best coast pairings is Tarzan, and then like an ASCII heart with the like open bracket, and the 3. So like it's clearly not his real name. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, Tarzan, he ran a really cool build. I think he's known for it. He ran 12 of the grot tanks, like their little artillery pieces.
Yes.
And 6 skeletons.
That's fantastic. That build is actually meta when the Codex hits, by the way.
It's really good. It's like those things murder Dread Knights for no reason.
Well, aren't they anti-vehicle?
I don't know Orc rules, man. They have so
dude.
rules.
Orcs are what I play the most with my co-host Zach, and he's beaten me silly in 10th, man. I don't think I've taken a. I took 2 games off of him, and we've played probably a dozen times.
Wow. Oh, so this is playing Tarzan was actually the first time in 9th or 10th that I've ever beaten Orcs, which felt good. But
nice.
It was the mission where the center objective disappears. So I just parked Terminator brick on one side, Terminator brick on the other side, and then just pretty much waited.
Yeah. I don't know about cans or grot tanks, but like most orc melee is -1 AP. So if you just true silver, I played one game in to Zach. I took a paladin brick with Voldus just to stat check him, basically. I wanted to see how it worked. He managed to kill like 4 of the paladins, and he had like a third of his army beating up on them for 3 turns. Like -1 to hit and -1 to wound and -1 AP into orcs feels real bad for them. They get real paper fingered real fast, like or pillow fisted.
Pillow hands. It's like the worst Johnny Depp movie ever. But the orkiness that did hurt me a ton were Mozrog and the Meganobs with Gaz.
Dude, yeah, Mozrog's a beast.
The 4 feel no pain is every single dice they roll is a 4, always, constantly. So yeah, that was a really fun game. I just, again, fortunate mission. I played okay and great opponent. Then I played one of my best friends who plays Tau. We were both competing to get into the finals.
Is this Kyle?
This is Kyle. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
he's a great dude. I played him once.
Yeah, he's also 3rd-year law student. So he really loves getting his rules right. And
so real know-it-all, is he?
A little bit. But he the lesson I learned from that game and practicing against him is that Tau, you'd think are really bad, but their shooting really struggles to kill Terminators with everything except the crisis unit.
Yeah.
So as long as you can effectively avoid that, you can pretty much do whatever you want. So I
caveat though, the breachers can pop off and just drown you in saves.
They can, but once again, they have the orc problem of AP1. That's
true. Yeah.
So they can drown in some saves, but we're still Grey Knights, we're still Terminators. So that game was essentially, I went second. Tau are kind of a 40 spam army right now. and they were able to both games against Tal that I played. They flooded the board really quickly, and it was a question of like, how much chaff can I pick away? Can I get everything in the right spot before they get there?
Yeah.
I was able to do it because I went second against Kyle, so I beat him. Then I go into the final against
How?
Donald Plummer, I believe his name is. Yeah.
Yeah, he won the. He won. I mean, obviously he won because you were playing the finals. Anyway, sorry.
But no, not at all. It was the ritual, so we're doing actions to place objectives, and only having 7 units really hurt me there. And him having a million units of chaff really helped him there. But there was a really funny moment. So I went first, which is never where you want to be with Grey Knights. Don't go first, kids.
Agreed.
So what ended up happening was I had my Paladin Sigil brick stretched out across the midboard, and Donald spends about 5 minutes doing that Brad Chester thing where he's looking at it, measures somewhere, looks at something, measures somewhere, and then he starts rolling advances like crazy. I think he had like 12 units that he advanced that turn, and he pushes every single model he has up the board. And what he's trying to do is deny me a place to put them down once he shoots them with a crisis brick, so I can't sigil anywhere. And he left me a space just about that big against my own back wall. It's on Dawn of War. That was the only place I could put my Paladins. That was turn 2 when that happened. Or that was top of 3 when it happened.
Well, Tetras and stuff have fly and 9-inch bubble around them and everything. Yeah, and you can't 3-inch deep strike with sigil because it's not your movement phase. That would be so fucking cool though if you could 3-inch deep strike with your sigil unit.
Or with Ingress, yeah, if we were Inceptors. But anyways, that Paladin brick, I went back with Donald after the game and we like mathed it out. It killed 900 and something points in 2 turns. Just charged up the board. It was a close game that I ended up losing, but like, dude, that unit is so good.
The 6-up crisis brick, yeah.
No, I'm saying my Paladins, they sigiled into my own backfield, and then they made it to his board side. It was.
I see. Okay, I'm sorry. I completely misunderstood that. I thought you were complaining about the crisis bricks still,
no.
Which are going away. Well, they're changing.
So, yeah, they're changing. But that unit is just so good.
The Paladins.
That game was really tight. What really was fun about that game was like he's a good opponent because he like talked through mists with me. So like typically what'll happen is people get the way a Grey Knight game goes is people figure out mists, spend the first 2 turns just figuring out how mists work, and then the next 3 turns afraid of mists. Well, the reason I think Donald really beat me was because he did a really good job baiting out where I was going to mists. And like what I want to play more of is the mirror, because I really want to play games where like we're bouncing off each other and missing around each other, and it's not just who has the more livies that can defend against it.
Right.
But it's a good time, man. Great answer, fun.
Yeah. No, it's pretty fascinating. Like when you think about just, I meant to bring this up earlier when you were talking about how every Grey Knight game is a puzzle and you have to like figure out where the pieces go. Which I mean, that is what you're doing. The mental drain for the movement phase for Grey Knights, or even your opponent's shooting phase, like where am I going to put the sigil unit, right? Like if they fire off my sigil, is legit. Like that is I think you have to play twice as hard. Like you were saying, like into like the Dark Angel, Azrael, triple Storm Raven, 1 Redemptor, and some Chaff, like and some Scouts. Like that list in Ironstorm, you move your big like Death Star up the board. Everybody gets rerolls and like lethal hits and sustained hits and stuff, and then you get rerolls from Ironstorm and Oath and everything. And it's not like the biggest decision you're gonna make every turn is what am I oathing?
Yeah.
Which is, where like Grey Knights, you're like, if I drop here, I can shoot my interceptors and then move 3 inches behind cover while still towing on this objective. Okay, I figured out what one unit I have is gonna do this movement phase, right?
I want to get your take on this, and this is a thought that I had because when I'm playing Grey Knights, a bunch of people, I've heard this probably 4 or 5 times. They'll say, "Oh, Grey Knights, I wish my brain wasn't too smooth for that." I've heard that exact phrase like 4 or 5 times. Um, in my head, it doesn't feel that crazy just because, like, I learned Grey Knights on ninth. And
Mhm.
since then, we've lost a whole phase in the psychic phase and we just don't need to think about it anymore.
Good
And then if
riddance.
you, yeah. But if you think about it, like, we don't have to do the movement phase really either because we just go where we want to go. So, like, it is a mental drain in terms of the decision making, but like the measuring is easy. Figuring out we only
Yeah.
have what 7 to 10
If,
units, so it's not that many decisions to make. Once you get in the groove of it, I feel like it's not that CPU intensive of an army to play.
yeah. If you have a 9-inch stick, you like you know where most of your army is gonna go. Yeah.
True.
But you
My
know, it's the questions I find that brain drain me that like get me locked up in analysis paralysis is like, you know, I had a really good opponent. I played Yunari last Wednesday and he hadn't played Grey Knights before in 10th, but he basically read the entire index and he asked a lot of questions about miss and if I move here, can you miss? How does your sigil work again? Um, and he made me make those suboptimal choices. Like I wanted to miss in 2 locations, but I needed to pick which unit I was gonna save, right? Because our stuff is expensive. You know, we can't have a you know a 200 point unit of, well, I guess with a 300 point character in it, but like, you know, you have Rain with Harlequins. You know,
right.
they're a blender, and you can't just give away like a Grandmaster Dread Knight, even if that is, you know, twice as many points as because you need that shooting, you need that unit.
Yeah, no. I
Yeah.
think this really comes down to why I want to go back to that 30 Terminator build because at the end of the day, even if you make a mistake, 10 Terminators is 10 Terminators, and there's very few things in the game, especially after the latest balance slate, which can actually just delete it.
Delete.
So
Yeah.
it's like, durability is your
Yeah.
best friend when you don't know what to do.
And regenning, man, like I had one game into Drukari against a very good opponent who slapped me silly all ninth. His first game with Sky Splinter, I had him tabled top of turn 3, no, bottom of turn 3, and I had lost 2 Terminators because I'd regened a whole bunch, like throughout the game. Like he killed more than that, but like at the end of the day, in my box, in my dead model box, was 2 Terminators, and I had killed his entire army. And I'm like, damn, that feels good. Like that snowballed.
I have a really similar story. I have a friend, a really close friend here in Florida, who plays Drakar as well. And before they got their new detachment, we would play it probably at least once a week. And all they could run then was Darkland spam, and it's a bunch of Cavalry warriors hopping out of boats with a bunch of like garbage 8-0 guns. So it's a bunch of here's my dark lances. I roll my 4 pinballs. Sometimes I make them, sometimes I don't. Whatever.
Yep.
And then
Yeah.
a million dice of 2-up saves. And we have an inside joke between us where it's like I'll roll the dice in the 2-up, not look, and say fine. And that's what it feels like. Like he kills so many Terminators constantly, and they just res, pass 2-up save, pass a 4-pin, res.
Yep.
Good time.
Yeah. It's the res is insane, dude. The res is like you're bringing back a 42 point model every time. You know, and again, if you're running MSU, you get potentially more models that you bring back. You could also potentially lose the entire brick where you wouldn't, or brick, the entire unit when you wouldn't have if they were a 10-man. But you know, like that's a lot. That's a lot of guys you can just bring back.
It's a lot of guys you can just bring back. There's also a really good argument to be made, I think, for running MSU Paladins because 5 Paladins will still get 3 of the special weapons.
Mm-hmm.
So having that little squad, it hits really hard. And if the Land Raider Redeemer thing sticks and people keep running that, 5 paladins plus a character popping out of a Redeemer, like maybe a chaplain popping out of a Redeemer, that thing hits really hard.
That's a tech thing that I think people should play with more, including me. Like 5-man Terminator, little blob with the chaplain on average, and I mean like significantly on average, like 60% of the time will kill a little knight.
Yeah,
that's good. That's significant. Unfortunately, like you lose the mortal wounds output of the Libby, or you lose ignore modifiers from having a GM, or you lose the 3-inch deep strike and the absolute beat stick that is Calor Drago. Like I watched that guy on the charge lethal hit a Custodes Land Raider and almost kill it by himself.
there's a lot of people, a lot of armies that can find a way to get a 4-up field note painting against psychic, or a 4-up field note painting against mortals. Certain armies like Custodes, they just get that, right?
Yeah.
There's very few armies that can legitimately stomach 5 paladins with a chaplain walking up to them and punching them.
Yeah, I mean they get 4 attacks hitting on 2s, +1 to wound, and +1 to wound isn't like, this is kind of going back to what I was saying earlier with the paladins and the -1 to wound. We're seeing more ignore modifier like Morty's, Aura. You have GMs, you have Trajan. Thankfully, it's not like every codex has a unit that does this now, but -1 to wound can be ignored. +1 to wound can't, like, you can't ignore that, right? As your GM unit's going to take that +1 to be wounded, right? So it's like you want to take those effects. I just wish that the Crozius wasn't such an awkward melee profile.
Yeah, well, I also think that's the best use for Voldus as well, because strength 10, you're wounding those little knights on 4s. You're wounding the rhinos on 3s, Terminators on 2s, flat, so he kills Terminators. And then when that unit is just sitting there and they backswing at it, -1 to hit, -1 to wound, -1 to hit.
Yeah. The -1 to hit, like, yeah, it's
huge.
It's huge, yeah.
Cool, man.
It is 10 after. Yeah. Thank you so much.
No,
rolling with the punches on this baby going to sleep, so I'm really thankful about that. I hope you had a great time. Do you have any shout outs?
Yeah, I definitely love to shout out my friend Kyle. Really knows his rules. Good guy. Enjoy law school. No, but thank you very much for having me on. It's always a pleasure to talk about Grey Knights. If it wasn't this late, I could talk about this all day. This is all.
Yeah, dude. Well, I might have to have you back because we got to know how that 30 interceptor build worked out.
Yeah. Well, hey, much love. Thank you so much.
Yeah, dude.
Have a great night.
Yep.
Hopefully talk soon.
I'll talk to you later.